These are always interesting conversations, aren't they? We have in the house a Brous from the sharpening bench. Stay tuned, guys. We will see what's in the white box. Hi gang, Rob here. It's the evening of 19 May 2015, and yes, we have yet another Brous in the house. My Brous Blades videos have been, hot and cold, and they've inspired lots of spirited comments over the months and years. We're going to sort of go back in time for this one and look at the SSF G10 Acid SW, aka Silent Soldier Flipper, with G10 handle scales in an Acid Stonewash. You know, we all sort of came to know the name Jason Brous from his Silent Soldier fixed blade, sort of a little last-ditch neck knife. Kind of the first effort of a very young maker, and a lot of, let's just say younger generation knife nuts really became attached to it quickly. It was cool. Jason was cool. He was edgy. The knife was edgy. And we've gone through a couple iterations or mods of the Silent Soldier fixed blade. And then, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I think when the Silent Soldier translated into a folder, I think that was Jason's first folding design. Don't know if it was the liner lock style like this one or the titanium frame lock, but we had the Silent Soldier Flipper, as is this one. Kind of an interesting looking little beast, isn't it? Well, let's kind of take a look at what we've got dimensionally and material wise here. We have a blade that is 2.5 inches long from the front of the handle, if measured in a straight line parallel with the cutting edge out here to the end. That is the listed length. That's the length I measure. Jason lists the cutting edge length at 2¼ inches. I measure it at barely 2 inches. If we measure from where the plungy curve thing ends and straight cutting edge begins, it's 2 inches. Handle length listed at 3.875, kind of difficult to measure. I measure it at about 3 15/16 or 3.94 inches. Width of the handle, 5/8 of an inch, 0.62 inches. The blade stock, 3/16 or 0.187 D2. Heat treated to 59 to 61 on the RC scale. And frankly, guys, my big attraction to Brous blades has always been his use of my beloved D2, because of the keenness of the edge that it takes. This one, no exception. So overall length, Jason listed at 6 3/8 or 6.375 inches. I concur. Here's where the second big discrepancy comes, not only in cutting edge length, this one even more significant. Weight of the knife listed at 4.2 ounces on my scale, which I find to be pretty accurate. 4.7, yeah, he lists it half an ounce low. Half an ounce, that's a lot of ounce for a tiny little 2-inch bladed, 2.5-inch bladed utility knife. 4.7 ounces, bordering on ridiculous. Why such a hefty son of a gun? Well, it's that thick blade stock, even with that big 7/8 of an inch finger hole, which I can't seem to really make work with any fingers for any reason. So with that, and with a pretty aggressively skeletonized set of liners, which are stainless steel, still 4.7 ounces. Most of that I think has to do with not a G10, not an aluminum, but a stainless steel backspacer. I would imagine Jason elected to use stainless steel for a specific purpose. Let's see if I can reveal it for you. I would say this is a feature of the knife that's not extremely well thought out. If you can see, if I can get the light to reflect correctly. Oh, there. See that little shiny spot right in front of my middle finger on that backspacer? That stainless steel backspacer happens to be the closed blade stop. We have a pin to stop the blade in the open position, but the closed blade stop function is done by this portion. See the corresponding shiny spot in the ricasso? This area of the blade contacting the front of the backspacer. That's the closed blade stop. Kind of odd, but probably a pretty good choice using a stainless steel backspacer if you're going to do that. Although Strider manages to do quite well with the G10 backspacer doing the same thing. Pocket clip, one of my favorites. It's the deep carry, tip up only, reversible fold over Brous clip. It's really excellent, guys. Retention is just right. The depth of carry is nice and deep, but the knife is still plenty of extractable. This cutout in the clip just sort of grabs the meat of your finger nicely coming out. Love it, and I've always loved it. Of course, it is a flipper only deploy, and the reason I say flipper only is that even though it has this 7/8 of an inch hole in the blade, you really can't access it. I mean, you can, I guess, sort of two-finger it. It's not an opening mechanism. Opening is by flipper. The suspension system on this knife, don't know if you can see well enough, but it's caged ball bearings, which achieve an action that's okay. Don't know how well Loctited this pivot is. This is a customer knife, belongs to a customer named Kyle, and he opted to not have the knife disassembled after sharpening. I did flush it out and lube it, but it's you know, it's not a super great action. There is no blade play. Let me see. Let me drop it down on the detent here. No side to side, no up and down. The geometry of that lock better be good, because the liner is extremely flimsy. Let me come in tight here. Takes very little pressure to move, which is sort of a common characteristic in Brous liner locks. Does not inspire confidence. It is nicely done. A nice scallop to make it comfortable for the thumb. Not that it needs to be, because it takes almost no pressure to release it. But you know, it isn't a Gale Bradley. You're not going to make your thumb sore disengaging this knife. Not sure why Jason felt the need to take such a big chunk out of that liner for tension relief. It could use more tension, in my opinion. You know, in what ought to be kind of a hard use utility knife, really bearing down on stuff, torquing that knife, you know. The lock bar is not very exposed. It's not like you have a big access cut over here that makes it easy to torque the handle and release the lock. That's a good thing. Not exposed like the bionic lock bar, which is a knife that folds easily when you don't want it to. But I just wish there were more tension. There's no reason to have such light tension on that lock bar when you have a steel on steel interface. So what about the flipping action? Well, once your hand gets used to being really far back on the knife, so it's almost falling out of your hand, the flipping action is pretty good. It takes a little bit of preload, definitely a push type flipper. It's so far back from the pivot, a light switch move is really kind of hard to execute. You really have to accelerate through it to do that. It can be done. Don't know if I can do it left-handed. With my old arthritic knuckle, probably can't. It's a decent flipper, not the greatest flipper I've ever seen. Kind of an odd placement, isn't it? And when we open the knife and go to use it, in the saber grip, it's not bad. Of course, I don't love Warney flippers because Warneys are usually, you know, they need to be bearing down on stuff. And it'd be nice to be able to get to the work, but the flipper kind of, I guess it doesn't get in the way too bad. So what about these ergos when we have the knife in hand? As I said, the saber grip pretty comfortable. I like how the pinky rests on that little angle at the back of the handle. That's the best grip for the knife. Actually, the One-All's Pub Ninja grip, where the bones of our hand are aligned over the spine for power, that's pretty comfortable. If you want to go forward in a saber grip, frankly, the hole is useless to me, but this radius behind the cutting edge almost acts like a forward choil. In fact, it acts quite like a forward choil. I've seen guys review this knife kind of up in this kind of a weird grip, using these scallops at the front of the blade for some use. I guess maybe if you put your middle finger through the hole, and if I try to use the hole and I guess sort of a saber grip, the knuckle of the middle finger just sort of bangs into the flipper, and if you go past the knuckle, you've got it buried really deep in your hand, and you really have to like cup your wrist around to get any meaningful attitude with the knife. I just don't. I guess if you're cutting sideways, that's kind of a comfortable grip. Maybe that's the design. You know, if you were opening a box, if you were taking tape, I guess that's a pretty comfortable grip. Maybe that's why the hole's there. I don't know. I can't see it being useful in any kind of a defensive role. And it's this blacked out acid stonewash thing. It's not really a karambit. Although I guess in that reverse grip it's not bad, and it's pretty comfortable. The draw cut grip, although it looks like that flipper's kind of digging me, I don't really feel it. So I guess, overall ergos aren't bad. I just really don't get the hole. Here's sort of my overall take on this knife. It was a novelty of a little last ditch neck knife, and the hole sort of made it cool. I don't know if that was all Jason or whether he sort of borrowed that idea from somebody else. Word on the street is that this jimping with the cut down the middle was borrowed, but I don't know how that's a proprietary, copyrightable piece of intellectual property. I mean, it's just a row of jimping with a line down the middle. It's not like a round hole. I mean, sorry for the sarcasm, guys. Anyhow, so what's the knife good for? I guess it's a utility knife with a robust blade stock, pretty high-end materials, and a modern ball bearing mechanism with a flipper, I guess. It's by the way, this knife in this Acid Stonewash configuration, $239 on Jason's website. I can think of a knife with a very similar application, very similar ergonomics, not quite the same quality of materials, with a much stronger locking mechanism that's perhaps just as easy to deploy with a different method for 1/10 of the price, and it weighs 2 ounces ish. Cold Steel Mini Tough Light. Actually, the knife I would really compare with the Silent Soldier would be the full-size Tough Light. The dimensions of the blade are almost the same. Yeah. Triad lock. OS 8A steel. Grivery handle, or Griv-X, I guess as Cold Steel calls it. Much thinner blade stock. Again, I wish I had a full-size Tough Light here. By the way, Josh, come pick up your knife. You won this like 8 months ago. Still sitting here. Lives in Fort Wayne. I should mail it to him. Anyway. Golly. So, I mean, I hate to do this, but frankly, if I could have the big brother to this knife for 30 bucks in a very narrow application or philosophy of use, there's just no way I'm paying 239 bucks for this. So kind of back to my support your small maker philosophy. There is one good application or one good reason to own a Silent Soldier flipper. If you're a Jason Brous fan and you want to have in your collection an early effort, and you want to sit it next to your other Brous blades so you can look at Jason's development over time, see where he came from, see the design choices he made when he was brand new, and compare them to, you know, present day, and trace his progress through his career. Maybe a good idea to have one. And get a G10 one, maybe not the Acid Stonewash, the satin, or I don't know if it's satin or a plain Stonewash, for 199 bucks. Maybe less if you can find one on the secondary markets, and I bet you can find one for less. That's a good reason to have a Silent Soldier. Just certainly not something I would have in the collection as a user. Well made enough, but kind of ridiculously heavy for the cutting power that you get, the cutting length of the cutting edge that you get, and not a heavy duty knife. Witness the really flimsy lock bar. But he learned since this design came out. Much better Brouses are available now. Just thought I'd give you my not so positive take on this one. Sorry about that, Jason. It is what it is. That's all for tonight. Grace to you and peace, my friends. God our Father and the Lord Jesus Christ. And remember the word. And Kyle's Silent Soldier, or sharp.